The silent arrival of the control room at Houston Space Command fell into absolute silence on March 15, 2025. For 7 years, the Odyssey had transmitted regular updates during its journey to Kepler 442b, a planet located 1,200 light-years from Earth. The crew of 623 colonists had become celebrities, their faces known to every person on the planet. They represented humanity's greatest leap into the unknown, pioneers seeking a new home among the stars. Captain David Chen had been speaking from the command deck just seconds earlier. His voice had carried the weight of exhaustion and triumph as he described their approach to the planet they had nicknamed New Haven. Behind him, crew members moved with practiced efficiency, their faces reflecting 7 years of hope and sacrifice. The planet filled their viewing screens, a world of deep blues and vibrant greens that seemed to mirror Earth in its prime. "We're beginning our orbital insertion now," Chen had said, his words crisp despite the distance. "The planet exceeds all our expectations. Atmospheric composition is perfect. Temperature readings are ideal. We're detecting what appears to be extensive vegetation coverage. This is really happening, Houston. We're about to land on our new home, then nothing." The screens went dark. The audio feeds cut to static. Every instrument tracking the Odyssey flatly showed the same result: signal lost. Mission Director Rebecca Torres stood frozen, her hand still raised from where she had been waving at the screen. Around her, technicians frantically worked their consoles, trying every protocol to re-establish contact. Minutes stretched into hours. Hours became days. Dr. Elena Vasquez watched the news coverage from her apartment in Seattle, her hands pressed against the glass window overlooking the city. Her husband Marcus had been aboard the Odyssey, serving as the mission's lead botanist. They had met at university, two scientists who shared dreams of touching the stars. When Marcus had been selected for the Odyssey mission, Elena had encouraged him to go despite her own heartbreak. 7 years, Marcus had told her during their final night together. 7 years to get there, and we'll be able to send messages back. You'll see everything through my eyes. You'll watch me plant the first seeds on another world. Marcus had sent her dozens of messages during the journey, videos of him tending the hydroponic gardens aboard the Odyssey, talking about his plans for New Haven's first agricultural zones. His last message had arrived 3 weeks before they reached the planet. In it, Marcus stood in the observation deck staring at the approaching world with wonder in his eyes. "Elena, I can see it now with my own eyes, not just on screens. It's beautiful beyond description. I wish you could be here to see this with me. Sometimes I dream that you're here, walking beside me through forests we haven't discovered yet. I'll send you detailed reports once we land. I love you. Wait for me." Elena had watched that message 1,000 times. She memorized every detail of Marcus's expression, the hope in his voice, the way his hand reached toward the screen as if he could touch her across the light years. Now that message felt like a ghost haunting her every waking moment. The world mourned. Vigils were held in every major city. The faces of the 623 colonists appeared on buildings and screens everywhere, accompanied by the question that consumed humanity. What happened to them? Theories spread like wildfire. Equipment failure, asteroid impact, hostile alien life. Some suggested the colonists had chosen to cut communication, wanting to build their new civilization without Earth's interference. Others whispered darker possibilities that no one wanted to speak aloud. Elena refused to accept any theory without proof. She left her position at the Aerospace Research Facility and enrolled in the military space program. She pushed herself through training that broke younger candidates. She studied every system aboard the Odyssey, memorizing technical specifications and emergency protocols. She learned combat, survival, and leadership. She had one singular purpose: to reach New Haven and discover what happened to Marcus and the others. 7 years of silence followed. 7 years while Elena transformed herself from a civilian scientist into something harder, more focused. The world's attention gradually shifted to other matters. New crises emerged. New missions launched to different destinations. But the question remained, hanging over humanity like an unanswered prayer. In 2032, the Global Space Coalition announced the recovery mission. They had developed new propulsion technology that could cut the journey time to New Haven in half. A small fast vessel called the Meridian would carry a specialized team to investigate the Odyssey's fate. They would travel for 3.5 years, investigate, and return with answers. Elena applied immediately. So did thousands of others. The selection process was brutal, designed to find individuals who could handle whatever horrors might await them on New Haven. They needed people who were technically brilliant, physically capable, and psychologically unbreakable. They needed specialists who could think clearly in the face of the unknown. Elena made the final selection. When Commander James Walsh told her she had been chosen as the mission's chief engineer and second in command, she felt no joy, only grim determination. This was what she had built herself toward for 7 years. The Meridian crew consisted of 8 people. Commander Walsh was a veteran of 3 previous deep space missions, a quiet man with sharp eyes who had lost his daughter to the Odyssey mission. Dr. Sarah Kim served as their xenobiologist and medical officer, brilliant and cautious. Lieutenant Marcus Cole handled security and tactical operations, his military background evident in every precise movement. Dr. Raj Patel was their astrophysicist and communications expert. Young but exceptionally talented, the others included 2 engineers besides Elena, Thomas Wright and Yuki Nakamura, both specialists in different systems. Dr. Lisa Monroe served as their psychologist and secondary medical officer, trained to recognize the mental strain of isolation and trauma. Finally, there was pilot Catherine Brooks, who could fly anything humanity had built and had volunteered specifically for this mission after her brother had been aboard the Odyssey. They trained together for 8 months, becoming more than a crew. They became a unit that moved and thought in sync. They reviewed every piece of data about New Haven, every message sent by the Odyssey crew, every technical specification of the colony ship. They prepared for every scenario they could imagine, knowing that reality would likely surprise them anyway. The Meridian launched on a cold morning in January 2033. Elena stood on the bridge as Earth fell away behind them, becoming a blue jewel against the darkness, then a star, then a memory. 3.5 years stretched ahead of them. 3.5 years to wonder what they would find. They spent the journey in rotation, some crew members awake while others slept in cryopods to conserve resources. Elena took 4 waking shifts during the voyage, each time finding the ship quieter and lonelier than before. She spent her waking hours maintaining systems, running simulations, and watching Marcus's old messages on repeat. Now they were all awake, crowded onto the Meridian's compact bridge as New Haven filled their viewing screens. The planet was exactly as the Odyssey had described, a world that seemed designed for human habitation. White clouds swirled over blue oceans. The continents blazed with green vegetation and brown plains. 2 small moons orbited in perfect synchronization, creating tidal patterns that should support rich coastal ecosystems. "Beginning orbital scan," Raj said, his voice tight with tension. "Looking for the Odyssey's beacon signal. They found it within minutes." The beacon transmitted strongly from the surface, its signal clear and unwavering. The location matched the colonists' planned landing site, a broad valley surrounded by gentle hills near a massive river delta. Exactly where they had intended to build first landing, their initial settlement. "Life signs?" Walsh asked. Raj shook his head. "Can't get clear readings from orbit. The planet's magnetic field is creating interference. We'll need to land and scan at close range." The Meridian descended through New Haven's atmosphere without incident. The entry was smooth, the air welcoming them as if the planet had been waiting. Through the windows, Elena watched the landscape rise to meet them. The forests below were dense and vibrant, trees that resembled Earth's redwoods mixed with strange species that seemed to glow faintly in the sunlight. They landed 5 kilometers from the Odyssey's beacon, approaching cautiously. Walsh wanted them ready for anything. The landing ramp extended with a hydraulic hiss. Elena was among the first to step onto New Haven soil, wearing a full environmental suit despite sensors showing the air was safe. The ground beneath her boots felt soft, covered in something like moss but springier, almost cushioned. She took her first breath of New Haven's air after triple-checking the atmospheric readings. It tasted pure, cleaner than any air she had ever breathed. The temperature was perfect, warm without being hot. A gentle breeze carried scents she couldn't identify but found pleasant, almost intoxicating. "This place," Sarah whispered beside her, removing her helmet. "It feels like home." They moved through the forest toward the Odyssey's location. The trees grew in patterns that seemed natural yet somehow organized, as if arranged to allow easy passage. Small creatures scattered at their approach, resembling Earth's mammals and birds but with subtle differences in coloring and movement. Everything was peaceful, vibrant, and eerily perfect. Then they saw the Odyssey. The massive colony ship sat in the clearing exactly as planned, its hull intact and gleaming in the sunlight. The vessel showed no signs of damage, no scarring from weapons or impacts. Systems indicators visible on the exterior panels glowed green, showing active power and functioning life support. But there were no people. No movement. No sounds except wind and distant animal calls. Elena's heart hammered in her chest as they approached the main airlock. It stood open, the ramp extended as if inviting them inside. Walsh signaled for tactical formation. Cole took point, weapon ready. They entered slowly, every sense alert for danger. Inside, the Odyssey was pristine. Lights functioned normally. The air circulation hummed quietly. The corridors showed signs of regular use but no damage, no blood, no evidence of violence or panic. They found the bridge first. Elena had studied this room in schematics 1,000 times. Now she stood in it, touching the same controls that Captain Chen had used. The last log entry showed Chen initiating the final landing sequence. His last recorded words: "Beginning touchdown. All systems optimal. New Haven, we have arrived." Then nothing more. No emergency messages. No distress calls. Just silence. "This doesn't make sense," Cole said, his weapon still raised. "Where is everyone?" There should be bodies, signs of struggle, something. They spread through the ship in teams, searching every section. The crew quarters were lived in. Beds made or unmade. Personal belongings scattered naturally. The cafeteria had dishes in the sink, food processors showing recent use. The medical bay revealed patient charts dated 5 months after landing, showing routine checkups and minor treatments. Everyone had been healthy. No diseases, no injuries beyond small accidents. Elena entered Marcus's quarters with Sarah accompanying her for support. The room was exactly as Marcus would have kept it, organized but lived in, scientific journals on the desk, photos of Elena on the walls. His botanist equipment lay neatly arranged. A half-finished report sat on his tablet, dated 4 months after landing, describing successful germination of earth crops in New Haven soil. Then Elena saw his personal log recorder. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. Sarah squeezed her shoulder gently before stepping outside to give her privacy. Elena sat on Marcus's bed and activated the device. Marcus appeared on the small screen, recorded 3 months after landing. He looked healthy, even vibrant. His skin seemed to glow slightly, though that might have been the lighting. His eyes were bright, more alive than she had ever seen them. "Elena," he said, smiling that familiar smile that now seemed somehow different. "I need to tell you something important. Something that will sound impossible." He paused, looking at something off-screen. "New Haven isn't just a planet. It's alive, not alive like Earth is alive, with separate organisms competing for survival. Alive as one unified consciousness, and it's been waiting for us." Elena felt cold despite the warm air. Marcus continued speaking, his voice filled with wonder and something else. Something that frightened her. "The planet communicates through chemical compounds in everything. The air, the water, the soil, the plants. When we breathe, when we eat, when we touch the ground, we're connecting to something vast and ancient. It's changing us, Elena, making us part of itself, and it's beautiful beyond anything I can describe." The recording showed Marcus standing, walking to his window. "Some people are afraid. They want to resist. But you can't fight paradise. You can't fight evolution. We're becoming something more than we were." He turned back to the camera. "I love you, Elena. I hope you never come here. Because if you do, you'll have to make the same choice I'm making. And I don't know if you'll choose what I chose." The recording ended. Elena sat in silence, the device heavy in her hands. Around her, Marcus's quarters suddenly felt like a tomb, a memorial to the man she had loved who had become something else entirely. She rejoined the team in the Odyssey's central corridor. Walsh looked at her questioningly. Elena shook her head, unable to speak yet. They continued their search, finding more and more evidence that the colonists had lived here for months, healthy and active, before vanishing. Outside the Odyssey, they discovered First Landing. The colonists had built it exactly according to plan. Modular structures arranged in careful patterns, agricultural zones with thriving gardens, water purification systems drawing from the nearby river, solar collectors and fusion generators providing power. Everything functioned perfectly, but again, no people. Tools lay scattered as if dropped mid-use. A child's toy sat abandoned near a playground. Clothes hung on lines dried by the sun. It was as if the entire colony had simply stood up in the middle of their daily activities and walked away. "Commander," Raj called from near the communications building. "You need to see this." They gathered around him. The long-range communication array had been completely dismantled. Not damaged by accident or malfunction, but carefully, methodically disassembled. Components were stored in organized containers, labeled and preserved. Someone had taken great care to ensure Earth could receive no more messages from New Haven. "They did this on purpose," Cole said. "They chose silence." Elena felt the weight of understanding settling over her. The colonists hadn't been killed or kidnapped. They had changed, transformed into something that didn't want to be human anymore, and they had cut themselves off from Earth to prevent anyone from stopping them. As the sun set over New Haven, casting the valley in golden light, Elena stood at the edge of First Landing and looked toward the forest. Somewhere in those trees, Marcus existed in some form, changed, transformed, perhaps happy in ways she couldn't understand. The Meridian crew gathered for a meeting that evening, sharing their findings. Everyone had discovered similar evidence: personal logs describing transformation, medical records showing unusual changes in brain chemistry, journals filled with increasingly strange observations about connection and consciousness. "We need to search the forest," Sarah said. That's where they went. "All the evidence points to it?" Walsh nodded slowly. "We'll send an expedition at first light. Full gear, constant communication. Nobody goes alone, but Elena knew it wouldn't be that simple. Already she could feel something in the air, something subtle and persuasive. A whisper at the edge of her thoughts, inviting her to relax, to accept, to understand. New Haven was calling to them, just as it had called to Marcus and the others. They had come seeking answers. Now Elena feared they might become part of the mystery instead. The night stretched ahead, filled with two moons' silver light and the distant sounds of a forest that might hold 623 transformed colonists, or something far stranger. The truth beneath paradise. The expedition into the forest began at dawn. Commander Walsh selected 5 people for the initial search: himself, Elena, Cole, Sarah, and Raj. The others would remain at the Meridian, monitoring communications and ready to launch a rescue if needed. They carried enough supplies for 3 days, though Walsh made it clear they would return within 24 hours regardless of what they found. The forest accepted them like old friends. The moment they passed beneath the canopy, Elena felt something shift in the atmosphere. Not dangerous, but present, aware. The trees grew thick and tall, their trunks wide as houses, their leaves creating a ceiling of green that filtered sunlight into shifting patterns. The ground was soft beneath their boots, covered in that same cushioned moss that seemed to grow everywhere on New Haven. "Temperature is dropping," Raj noted, checking his instruments, "but it still feels comfortable." "Actually, it feels perfect." "How is that possible?" Sarah collected samples as they walked, scraping bark, gathering leaves, taking soil cores. "The biological diversity here is incredible. I'm seeing species that shouldn't exist together. Plants from different evolutionary paths growing side by side. And they're all healthy, thriving. As if they've found perfect balance, they found the first marker 2 hours into their hike. Someone had carved a symbol into a massive tree trunk, a spiral pattern that seemed to pulse and shift when Elena looked at it directly. Her eyes couldn't quite focus on it, as if the symbol existed partially in dimensions her brain couldn't process. "Don't stare at it too long," Walsh warned. "We don't know what effect it might have." But Elena had already felt something, a tug at her consciousness, an invitation to understand. She forced herself to look away, her head spinning slightly. Around them, more symbols appeared on other trees, creating a path deeper into the forest. Cole kept his weapon ready, scanning constantly for threats. "This feels like a trail." They wanted to be followed. "Or they wanted to leave messages," Sarah suggested. "Maybe warnings." They followed the symbols for another hour. The forest grew denser, darker, though never threatening. If anything, it felt increasingly welcoming. Elena noticed her breathing had become easier, deeper. Her old injuries from training no longer ached. Even her chronic anxiety, the constant worry that had defined her for 7 years, seemed to be fading into calm acceptance. "Commander," she said quietly, "something's happening to us. The air here, it's different from the landing site." Walsh nodded. "I feel it too. Everyone stay alert. Remember your training. Don't let your guard down. But how could they guard against something that made them feel better than they had ever felt? Elena recognized the danger in that comfort. It was seductive, removing pain and fear and replacing them with peace. But that peace wasn't natural. It was designed, engineered by something vast and patient. They found the first colonist at midday. The woman sat at the base of an enormous tree, her body partially merged with the bark. Roots grew through her legs, not violently piercing flesh, but integrated, as if her body had invited them in. Branches extended from her shoulders and back, covered in leaves that moved gently in the breeze. Her eyes were open, staring at nothing and everything, her face locked in an expression of absolute serenity. Sarah approached carefully, medical scanner in hand. She's alive. Heart rate is slow but steady. Brain activity is off the charts, far beyond normal human levels. It's as if her consciousness has expanded somehow. Can we help her? Elena asked, though part of her wondered if help was the right word. The woman didn't look distressed. She looked content, peaceful, more at peace than any human Elena had ever seen. I don't think she wants help, Sarah said softly. Her body is sustaining itself through photosynthesis and nutrient absorption from the tree. She's become part of the ecosystem. They found more colonists as they ventured deeper. Some were merged with trees like the first woman. Others sat in clearings, their bodies transforming in different ways. One man's skin had taken on a crystalline quality, refracting light in rainbow patterns. A group of children played near a stream, their laughter musical and strange, their movements too fluid to be entirely human anymore. None of them acknowledged the Meridian crew. They seemed to exist in their own reality, experiencing things the visitors couldn't perceive. Elena felt tears streaming down her face as she recognized some faces from the Odyssey mission profiles. These had been scientists, engineers, farmers, teachers. Now they were something else entirely. Marcus, Elena whispered. Where are you? As if in answer, she felt a presence touch her mind. Not words, not images, but pure sensation and emotion. Recognition. Love. Welcome. She spun around, searching the forest, and saw him. Marcus stood between two massive trees, looking almost human still. His skin held that same translucent quality she had noticed in the video recording, as if starlight moved beneath his flesh. His eyes were bright, impossibly bright, reflecting colors that shouldn't exist. But his smile was the same smile she remembered, filled with warmth and recognition. Elena, he said, his voice layered with harmonics that resonated in her chest. You came. She ran to him without thinking, Walsh's warning shout behind her ignored. Marcus caught her in his arms, and the moment he touched her, Elena's perception exploded outward. Suddenly she felt the forest as he felt it. She experienced the flow of nutrients through roots, the stretch of branches toward sunlight, the dance of insects and birds through the canopy. She felt the consciousness of New Haven itself, vast and ancient and utterly alien, yet somehow loving. What happened to you? She gasped, pulling back but unable to fully break contact. His touch was addictive, opening doorways in her mind she hadn't known existed. Evolution, Marcus said gently. Transformation. New Haven isn't just a planet, Elena. It's a living entity, a consciousness that spans every organism here. It's been alone for millions of years, developing, growing, waiting, and then we arrived. It's changing you, taking away your humanity. It's offering us more than humanity. We're part of something greater now, connected to every living thing on this world. We experience reality in ways you can't imagine. There's no pain here, no fear, no loneliness. We're never alone because we're part of everything. Elena felt the truth of his words through their connection, but she also felt what was missing: ambition, curiosity, the drive to explore and question. The colonists had found peace, but they had lost the restless spirit that made humanity reach for the stars. This isn't right, she said. You're not you anymore. I'm more than I was, Marcus corrected. And you could be too. The planet is calling to you, Elena. I can feel it. You're already changing, breathing the compounds, absorbing them through your skin. In a few days, you'll understand. You'll want this. Commander Walsh and the others had caught up, weapons raised, though Elena knew they wouldn't fire. What would be the point? You couldn't kill an idea, and that's what New Haven was, an idea of perfect unity that consumed individuality. Where's Captain Chen? Walsh demanded. Where are the others? Marcus gestured deeper into the forest. Some went further than others. Chen was one of the first to embrace the transformation fully. He's at the heart now, merged with the central consciousness. Would you like to see? No, Walsh said firmly. We're leaving. Elena, step away from him. But Elena couldn't move. Through her connection with Marcus, she felt New Haven's vast attention focusing on her. The planet was curious about these newcomers, these resistant humans who fought against integration. It didn't understand rejection. For millions of years, it had existed as perfect harmony, every organism playing its part in the grand symphony of consciousness. Humanity's fierce individualism was fascinating and troubling to it. The planet won't force you, Marcus said, reading her thoughts through their bond. It's patient. It knows you'll choose eventually. Everyone does. The compounds are already in your bloodstream, rewriting your neural pathways. Fighting only makes the process more difficult. Sarah had been scanning Elena with her medical equipment. Commander, she's right. We're all showing elevated levels of unknown organic compounds. Our brain chemistry is changing. We need to leave New Haven now before the transformation becomes irreversible. Walsh grabbed Elena's arm, breaking her physical contact with Marcus. The sudden disconnection felt like drowning after learning to breathe underwater. Elena gasped, her perception collapsing back to normal human senses. The world seemed smaller, duller, lonelier. Move, Walsh ordered, pulling her back toward the trail. Cole and Raj formed a protective barrier as they retreated. Marcus didn't follow. He simply stood there, smiling sadly as they fled back through the forest. The journey back to First Landing took half the time it had taken to go in. They ran, driven by Walsh's urgency and their own growing fear. Elena could feel New Haven in her blood now, whispering suggestions, offering comfort, promising peace. Her body wanted to turn around, to go back to Marcus, to surrender to the transformation. When they burst from the forest edge, the remaining crew rushed to meet them. What happened? Yuki demanded. You look terrified. We're leaving, Walsh said flatly. Everyone to the Meridian now. We launch within the hour. But they had waited too long. As they approached their ship, they found Dr. Monroe sitting at the base of the landing ramp, staring toward the forest with longing in her eyes. I can hear it calling, she whispered. It's so beautiful. Why are we running from something so beautiful? Thomas Wright stood nearby, tears streaming down his face. My arthritis is gone. All the pain I've lived with for 20 years vanished. This place is healing us. Why would we leave? Elena saw the same struggle on every face. New Haven had gotten into all of them, offering exactly what each person needed most. Pain relief, peace, connection, belonging. It was insidious because it wasn't evil. It was simply alien, operating on principles that didn't account for human free will and individual identity. Walsh made a command decision. Cole, Yuki, Catherine, you three seem most stable. Get to the bridge and begin launch prep. Everyone else into the med bay. Sarah, sedate anyone who resists. The next hour was chaos. Monroe tried to run toward the forest and had to be physically restrained. Wright sabotaged a fuel line before Cole caught him. Even Raj, their brilliant communications expert, stood at a window muttering about signals and connections and networks of consciousness. Elena helped Sarah prepare sedatives, fighting her own urge to walk away from the ship. Every moment they stayed on New Haven made the transformation stronger. She could feel her resistance crumbling, her questions fading, replaced by acceptance and desire for unity. Sarah worked with desperate efficiency, drawing compounds and preparing injections. This won't stop the transformation, she said quietly to Elena. It'll just slow it down. We need to get into space, away from the concentrated compounds in the atmosphere. Will we make it? Elena asked. Sarah met her eyes. I don't know. Some of us might be too far gone already. The Meridian's engines roared to life. Catherine reported from the bridge that all systems were nominal. They could launch immediately. Walsh ordered everyone strapped in, sedated or not. The ship trembled as it prepared for takeoff. Through the windows, Elena saw figures emerging from the forest. Dozens of transformed colonists, walking calmly toward the ship. Not threatening, just observing. She recognized faces from the Odyssey crew. Scientists, engineers, families. They had all chosen paradise over humanity. Marcus stood at the front of the group. Even from a distance, Elena felt his consciousness reaching toward her, inviting her one last time. The temptation was overwhelming. To be free of doubt and fear, to be part of something eternal and vast, to never be alone again. I'm sorry, she whispered, knowing somehow he could hear her. I can't. The Meridian lifted off with a roar that sent birds scattering from the forest canopy. They climbed rapidly, punching through New Haven's atmosphere into the cold safety of space. Elena watched through the window as the planet fell away, becoming a beautiful blue and green sphere that had nearly claimed them all. In the medbay, half the crew remained sedated. The others sat in stunned silence, processing what they had experienced. Walsh called a meeting once they had established stable orbit. 8 faces gathered in the common area, each showing the strain of their narrow escape. We need to decide what we tell Earth, Walsh said. The truth could cause panic, but lying would be worse. More missions could be sent. More people could be lost. We tell them everything, Elena said firmly. Every detail. Let humanity decide if they want to risk contact with New Haven. Raj shook his head. You saw what happened to us, and we were only there for 2 days. Imagine what would happen if Earth sent another colony mission. Thousands of people transformed into that thing's consciousness. We'd lose them all. Then we recommend quarantine, Sarah suggested. Mark New Haven as a restricted zone. No contact, no missions, no further exploration. But Elena knew it wouldn't be that simple. New Haven was perfect for human colonization in every measurable way. The temptation to try again, to study the transformation, to perhaps control or resist it, would be overwhelming for some people. There would always be those who thought they could succeed where the Odyssey failed. Catherine reported from the bridge. Commander, I'm detecting something strange. The planet's magnetic field is fluctuating in patterns. It's almost like it's trying to communicate with our ship. They rushed to the bridge. The sensor displays showed complex wave patterns emanating from New Haven, carrying what appeared to be encoded information. Raj worked frantically to decode it, his hands shaking. It's a message, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. From the colonists. From the planetary consciousness. From whatever they've become together. Walsh authorized him to play it. The bridge speakers crackled to life, and they heard voices, not speaking in unison but layered, harmonized, creating something that was many voices and one voice simultaneously. Meridian crew, the voices said, and Elena recognized Marcus's tone among them, along with Captain Chen and dozens of others. We understand your fear. We understand your choice to leave. We were once like you, clinging to individuality, afraid of transformation, but we want you to know that we are not lost. We are found. We are more than we were, experiencing existence in ways that transcend description. The message continued, filled with descriptions of unity and consciousness and eternal peace. It spoke of loneliness ending, of pain fading, of perfect understanding and connection. It was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. We do not ask you to return, the voices concluded. We do not ask Earth to send more of your kind. We simply want you to know that we are happy, that we chose this, that the paradise you fear is real and waiting. Tell our families we love them. Tell humanity we have found our home. And if any among you wish to join us, you are always welcome. New Haven remembers you. New Haven will wait. The transmission ended. Silence filled the bridge. Elena felt tears on her cheeks, though she couldn't say if they were from grief or relief or some emotion she had no name for. Walsh made his decision. We're going home. We'll deliver our report, show them everything we found, and let Earth decide. But I'm recommending permanent quarantine. New Haven is too dangerous, too seductive. We can't risk losing more people to it. The journey home would take 3.5 years. They would spend most of it in cryosleep, letting time pass while their bodies slowly purged the compounds from their systems. Sarah had calculated that the transformation might be reversible if they stayed away from New Haven long enough, though she couldn't guarantee it. As they prepared for cryosleep, Elena recorded her final message. She sat in the small recording bay thinking about Marcus and the 623 colonists who had become something beyond human. To anyone watching this, she began, New Haven is the most beautiful trap in the universe. It offers everything we dream of: peace, health, unity, belonging. And those offers are real. The colonists are genuinely happy in ways we can barely comprehend. But they paid a price for that happiness. They surrendered their humanity, their individuality, their future. They became part of something ancient and alien that doesn't understand what it means to be human. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. I loved someone on New Haven. I could have stayed with him. Part of me still wants to. That's what makes this place so dangerous. It doesn't threaten or attack. It simply offers paradise and waits for you to accept. And once you do, you'll never want to leave. You'll never want to be just human again. Elena looked directly into the camera. My recommendation is simple. Seal the location of New Haven. Destroy the records if necessary. Humanity isn't ready for this. Maybe we never will be. We're too curious, too ambitious, too willing to sacrifice everything for the promise of something better. New Haven preys on those exact qualities. She ended the recording and made her way to the cryo bay. One by one, the crew members entered their pods. Elena was the last, with Catherine staying awake to monitor the initial cryo process before entering her own pod. As the cold embrace of cryo sleep began to take her, Elena's last thought was of Marcus. Not the transformed version standing in the forest, but the man she had loved before the Odyssey launched. The man who had dreamed of planting gardens on another world. The man who had promised to wait for her. He had waited, and now she was leaving him behind, choosing humanity's flawed, painful, lonely existence over New Haven's perfect unity. It was the hardest choice she had ever made. But it was her choice, and that freedom to choose was worth any paradise. The Meridian sailed through the void between stars, carrying 8 survivors and a warning that might save or doom humanity's future among the stars. Behind them, New Haven continued its eternal orbit, patient and waiting, knowing that someday someone would return. Because paradise once glimpsed is impossible to forget. And in the forests of that distant world, 623 colonists lived in perfect harmony, no longer quite human, but perhaps no longer needing to be. They had reached for the stars and found something beyond anything humanity had imagined. Whether that discovery was humanity's greatest achievement or its most tragic loss remained a question only time could answer. The transmission had stopped in 2025. Now, in 2036, a new transmission would reach Earth carrying a truth more complex and unsettling than anyone had anticipated, and humanity would have to decide, was New Haven a promised land or a beautiful end to everything that made them human? The answer, Elena knew, would define humanity's future among the stars. And whatever Earth decided, the colonists of New Haven would continue their transformation, becoming something ancient and new, alien and familiar, forever part of a consciousness that spanned an entire world. Their silence had been their choice, and perhaps, Elena thought as cryosleep finally claimed her, that silence was the greatest mercy they could offer the species they had left behind.